Coming up, I'll tell you why 54% of people are faking their vacations. And then move over recession. Is America now in a vibe session? And William Vanderbloemen, an expert on talent and leading them, is joining me. Here to help you win at work, I'm Ken. This is the Ken Coleman Show. Excited that you are with us. Let's dive into something that is increasingly a problem. Americans are in a work environment in which they just feel like they cannot unplug. And sometimes it is the fault of leaders who are allowing this perception to be true, creating the perception, demanding it actually. And some of it is a fault of people being very insecure and fatalistic. And that's as simple as it gets. I mean, those are the causes of this. Let's get into the numbers. Of course, we let off the show. 54% of people, this is a pretty big number of people report working while on vacation. That means they're stealing time away from themselves, from their family, to get work done. And this is during a time when you're supposed to be vacating work. I mean, the very root word of vacation is vacate. So the Motion Agency did a study where we're pulling some of this information. This is a Forbes article as our source. This study also revealed that 34% of people work while on vacation because they love their job. So they love the job, and they just can't get enough of it to where they're on vacation, they're doing it. And I get it, but I don't know if they love the job or they love the feeling that comes with the job. And this is something I talk about a lot, so I get that. I looked at this data and I began to personalize it. And I was thinking about my own routine on vacation. I don't work on vacation. I just don't. I will check in once, maybe twice on something. But that's a quick check-in. We're talking about 5-10 minutes. And I'm just thinking about my routine and kind of what my past has been like. And I do a lot of thinking on vacation. Now, that's different than working. You know, one of the things I love to do, certainly when we go to the beach with my family, is I get up earlier than everybody else anyway. And one of the things I like to do is get out at the beach early in the morning and have some quiet time and then sit with a moleskin and a pencil, just like this. In fact, this is exactly it right here. And I just love it. And then what I do is I just allow myself time to think. And there's zero schedule. There's no agenda. And I'm just doing some thinking. And the mundane environment of sitting in front of the water, the waves crashing in, birds, overhead, the whole 9 yards, you get the scene. We know from research, I've talked about it on this show, that when we put our minds in a sense of boredom or in a place of boredom, it can get very creative. In fact, it's recommended that you do mundane things on a regular basis so that your brain starts firing on all cylinders, and things that have been stored in your brain, what will happen is they will come out. And it's just a fascinating deal on how the brain works. So scheduled boredom is good. But this idea that 34% of people work while on vacation because they love their job, I don't know if it's they love the job, because I love what I do, but I'm not interested in doing a show while I'm on vacation. I'm just not. But I do understand if you love the benefits of the work, and so you're like, boy, that's a high. I want to keep doing that, and I get that. But let's look at the negative side. 26% of people work on vacation because their boss demands it. Hey, you can't check out. Got to have you done. I remember a story. A friend of mine told me that his boss expected him to answer all emails while on vacation. No thanks. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? That's just how we are. This is what the leader said. This is just how we do things. We answer emails. Let me tell you something. There's no way I'm answering emails while I'm on vacation. I hardly answer emails when I'm in the office. I'm sure as heck not going to do it while I'm on vacation. Emails are just the absolute tyranny of the urgent. Everybody's tyranny. It's like, you got to answer this email. Got to get your inbox clean before the end of the day. Why? Because you do? No thanks. 29% work on vacation because they fear they're going to lose their job. Now, again, unless there's a direct correlation between the last piece of data that 26% work on vacation because their boss tells them they have to, they can't unplug. This 29% who does it because they feel they're going to lose their job, a good portion of that's on them. That fatalistic idea, have you clearly communicated? Have you set work into motion? Somebody covering for you while you're gone? What do we do when someone's gone? Work can wait. The world keeps spinning. One of the things that I found fascinating early on in life when I was an adult and I went on vacation and I had a job and I realized that I completely unplugged. And when I came back, there were no fires. Quite frankly, nobody even really missed me. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, life goes on, And so when I'm checked out on the beach, the world keeps spinning. Nobody's going, we got to kind of press pause on life because Coleman's not in the office. It just doesn't happen. So if you're one of those people, you got to ask yourself, what is at the source of you being afraid to just turn work off while on vacation? And by the way, while I'm on this subject, turning work off when you're at home too. 63% of people in this study feel anxious if they don't check their work emails while away. As a result, 70% of people have experienced mental health issues due to overworking. Yeah, you're freaking worried all the time. I mean, Alex, for all the rant I go on the show about email, if nothing else, one of the great things about my policy on email is that I'm never stressed about email. I'm not stressed about email when I'm in the office. I'm not stressed about email when I'm away. You know why? Because anybody who works with me knows if it's really important, we're going to look at him in the eye and we're going to talk to him about it. I literally will go home today with a full inbox. I could turn around and show you a picture and freak a lot of people out. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I'm not better than anybody else. I just decided that this is not how I'm going to work because it's stressful. And so I've set boundaries in place. All right, let's talk about beyond the boundaries. Let's just talk about the benefits real quick of taking a vacation. Creativity increased by 33% when a small company enforced vacation time. They saw creativity increase. They saw happiness levels rise. They saw productivity increase. Harvard Business Review actually highlighted physical and emotional benefits of taking a vacation. And when taking a vacation, by the way, that means being fully present in your vacated state. Like your brain is not back at the office. Your brain is on the beach or in the mountains or wherever you are. Here are the effects, positive effects. Positive emotions, which of course can reduce depression and anxiety. You cannot be grateful and worried at the same time. You cannot be happy and worried at the same time. It improves your sleep. So many sleep problems are a result of work-related stress. I don't know if you're like me, but I always remember some of the best sleeps I've ever had on vacation, even though I really love my pillow and my bedroom and my whole situation. I've got it all. I got to tell you, when I go on vacation, Bob, I got to take all the stuff with me. And I can't take my full-length body pillow. It's too big to pack. That's a real problem. But I'm just telling you, when you aren't worried and you are happy, you're going to sleep better. Next, stress hormones are reduced. Just a simple change of venue, change of rhythm. And then your physical health, because you're probably going to be way more relaxed, way less stressed, and you're physically hiking, biking, swimming, or whatever. And then finally, You get a chance to actually get away from the distractions, and you get a chance to connect with yourself. I love the way they said that. That's the head. That's the heart. The time of just quiet, rhythm of rest. Resting the brain, resting the heart. And all of a sudden, you come back fired up. Take a vacation, America. You earned it.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about Aiden. He started at Bethel Tech 2 weeks after graduating high school, and less than a year later, he's 19 and working as a full-stack software developer. He loved the idea of being able to work at his own pace, but what he really thought was cool was Bethel Tech's faith-based learning environment and being with classmates who had a similar worldview. Now, if this is you, or if you have a son or a daughter that's looking for the next step out of high school, and they may be tech-minded, at least interested, you need to talk to Bethel Tech. Listen to this. Fortune Magazine named them as a top 10 best UX UI bootcamp for 2024. And right now, they're offering you 10% off because you listen and watch The Ken Coleman Show. They also allow you to pay cash, and I know you'll like that. Go to betheltech.net/Ken Coleman for details. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey!
Welcome back to the Ken Coleman Show. Hey, if the show is helping you out, will you help us help others? You can do that if you're listening via podcast by giving us a follow, a 5-star review, and sharing an episode. If you're watching via YouTube, you can help us spread the word by liking a video with that thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and sharing the video as well. Okay, we talked about this at the top. What is a vibe session? So we had a lot of economists, pundits talking about the possibility of a recession literally over the last year and a half to 2 years. We've not seen it happen. And at least a full-blown recession. You know, there's argument about whether or not it was a mild recession, you know, but obviously we've not had a big, painful recession. We can all agree on that. And so there are a lot of indicators in this economy right now that are good, where we see low unemployment, we see wages up, but then, of course, inflation. And so it's just been this weird roller coaster of viewpoints and emotions about the American economy. And so now there's a phrase that's being bandied about called vibe session. Now, what's a vibe session? So I talked about this in our staff meeting when we were talking to our team, and they were like, what is vibe session? So picture the word recession, take the RE out and put the word vibe in, and it's a vibe session. In other words, it is a disconnect in the emotion. I can't believe we've come up with words like this where you have to like break it down and explain it, but it is a disconnect between what is actually happening in the economy, where we have a pretty good economy right now in some ways. Obviously, inflation's never good, and that makes things just sucky and more expensive. But by and large, it's a disconnect here between where the economy is and then how we feel about the economy. That's all this means. And somebody created this. I don't know who created it. But to give you a real kind of number here to lock in on this, and this is 84% now of Americans rank inflation among their top concerns, followed by housing prices and interest rates. Okay, so that gives you an idea. So the vibe session is, I ain't got a good vibe about this, right? I mean, if you're really going to break it down, I don't have a good vibe, man, about interest rates and what am I going to do? I want to sell my house. Where would I go if I sell the house? You know, this is all real stuff. And so it's just a disconnect between the economy's overall strength and its perceived weakness among people. So that's what it is. Now, where are we? Are prices still rising? The answer is yes. But this is where the political speak, and depending on what network you watch, you get a different vibe. So I kind of appreciate this vibe session term. Are prices continue to go up? In other words, are we still in an inflationary period? The answer is yes. But what's slowing, they're saying inflation is slowing. In other words, it's growing at a slower pace than it was, but we're still in an inflationary period where it's above the 2% benchmark that the Fed has kind of said 2% inflation is a healthy inflationary rate. Anything above 2%, it's not good. So if you look at the consumer price index, you don't have to understand what that is. I'm just going to break it down for you in a very simple fashion. The consumer price index is a key inflation measure and is tracking average prices across the spectrum of consumer goods and services. Now, the consumer price index increased 3.3% in May, year over year. So if you look at last May, it increased 3.3%. So again, by the Fed's own benchmark, it went up. Okay? Inflation. Now, if you look to 9.1% inflation in June of 2022, is it down? Of course. So last year, 2023, this time, it has increased 3.3%. But it was at a 9.1% peak in June of 2022. So you have policymakers go, well, look at what's happening. We're cooling it. Well, okay, no one's clapping for that because it's still hitting the American people right in the wallet. You talking about filling up for a tank of gas. You're talking about rental payments going up. You're talking about buying groceries. It's just more expensive to do everything these days. Everything. And so here we are. We're the American consumer. What do? We got to buy certain basic stuff, right? We don't have to go high on the hog. And I feel like we are in a place, when you look at the consumer sentiments, I feel like we're in a scary place where people are just going, they gripe in one breath, but then shrug it off in the next. It sounds like this. I can't believe how expensive groceries are, or gas is this, or our vacation costs nearly a double, blah, 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 blah. And, it's so expensive. My goodness, have you seen this? And so on one hand, you are acknowledging that it's expensive, griping about it, complaining about it. And then in the next breath, you go, what are you going to do? And so we forget this concept called supply and demand. And if we as consumers said, let me rephrase that conversation, what it should be, hey, this stuff is expensive. And instead of shrugging off going, all right, I can't control what Jerome Powell does. I can't control what my neighbor does, what my sister-in-law and how they buy. We stop playing the comparison game. We go, what can I do? What's good for me in my house? And so you cut. You cut expenses. You save. Now, just for a broad idea of an experiment, imagine millions of Americans saying, we are going to slash our grocery budget. We're going to make stuff go longer. We're going to pack lunches. We're going to stop eating out. And let's say that millions upon millions of Americans did this for just 30 days. Okay, I'm talking 1 month. I'm telling you, you would see a ripple across the economy. Now, some of you are going, why would you do that? We got to go out to eat, support those local restaurants. Well, you don't have to do anything. And I'm all for local restaurants. I love the restaurants where I live. I love them. Love them. I got some restaurants in my neighborhood. Love to see them stay around. Okay? But you're missing the point. The point is that we consumers have a lot to do with some of this inflation stuff. We kind of gripe about it. Are we going to vote on it? I don't know. We got an election year coming up. We're going to vote on it. What are you going to do? Well, that's up to you, how you vote and who you vote for. But I got news for you. It doesn't have a whole heck of a lot to do with it when it comes to consumer spending. When consumers spend aggressively, prices go up. When consumers contract their spending, guess what happens? Prices go down. So I guess the point I'm trying to make today is in Economics 101, I don't think we, the people, realize how much power we have over this. Now, listen, yes, you have power at the polls. So vote. I'll tell you this. I was telling the team earlier today, and I'll just tell you this. I think the greatest threat to America's sovereignty and to America's health is our national debt. Folks, that's not just some fun number that's on a ticker. Like, there are real countries that we owe that money to. And a couple things go the wrong way, and we are in big, let me just say this, all caps, big time trouble. It's a real thing. Like, we actually owe that money. And just look up the national debt sometime. And you go, I don't feel that. No, you don't feel it right now. I digress, more on that at another time. But understand that we can do something. And I share this article because when you see things like a vibe session, you start going people's feelings involved, but we're not acting on our feelings. And if you've got a feeling like this ain't such a great economy, you need to look at what's causing that feeling and what you can do about it. And this is, again, what we preach big time at Ramsey Solutions: control what you can control. And you can actually control a lot and be really comfortable in a recessionary period if you change the way you act and the way you spend. All right, folks, if you want a better workplace, you start with leadership. If we want to see the workplace be a better place to do work, it's all about leadership. Culture, the right people on the right seat of the bus, is there trust? I could go down the list. If you just look at what makes a great place to work, it's the leader. People leave leaders on companies. I talk about this a lot. So for those of you that are in leadership today, those of you who are thinking about being in leadership today, I got a really special treat. Really excited to have a longtime friend by the name of William Vanderbloemen. He's in the recruiting space, and so he understands what leaders are looking for. He understands what makes leaders really, really good. He has this, and he's done a lot of research, and I love when somebody comes on the show and gives me data. And he's got a new book out called Be the Unicorn, 12 Data-Driven Habits That Separate the Best Leaders from the Pack. And this is really important stuff. So if you are interested in being a leader, you're thinking about it, you're going, what does it take to win in leadership? You are in leadership, and maybe you haven't been trained or developed very well, and you're going, I need the edge. Boy, oh boy, this is really good stuff. So let's jump into my conversation with William Vanderbloemen. So we got 12 soft skills. These were the clear patterns. These were the factors. Can we say that? These 12 factors stood out enough for you to go, I'm writing them down in a book. And I think it's really interesting that it's about people, that the people that are the unicorns, if you will, they're just over the top with people. What do you take away from that?
Really good news. I had thought top talented people, maybe they all have a really high IQ. No. Top talented people must have gone to Ivy League. No. Wasn't any of that. It really was, how do they behave with other humans? And what we found was these 12 habits are probably things you grew up hearing you ought to do. Like the secondary title I kid should have been, well, I guess mom was right.
Right. Yeah.
Because so much of this is just basic human decency. But what we discovered was through the data, it's not just your mom's opinion. This actually works. And these 12 habits are habits that the unicorns we identified almost incessantly bend toward, and all the rest of us almost incessantly put off. But the cool thing, the reassuring thing of this data is you don't have to be 6 feet tall. You don't have to have gone to an Ivy League school. You don't have to have an IQ of 160. You just need to focus on practicing these 12 habits. This started as a selfish research project for me to learn how to do my job as a search consultant better. But when we uncovered a roadmap for people to elevate themselves in what's a really crowded time in the job market, we're like, well, I guess we got to write a book. And Ken, you've written a book. It isn't fun. you hardly ever make any money on it. It's more about a message that needs to get out. And so we're hoping this really helps get a message out that helps people elevate themselves in the workplace.
All right, so let's break this down. Is it possible to go from 0 to 10 in these 12 areas?
I think so. I think so. It just takes discipline. It's like, I tell people, it's like we have discovered the magical treadmill that will turn you into an elite level distance runner and get you in shape.
Yeah.
Now you have to get on it.
Yeah. All right, so
whether people actually apply.
Yeah, so we don't have time to go through all 12 in depth, but I do want you to walk us through the 12 briefly because I want people to really grasp, because this is the stuff that Mom taught you. This is common sense people skills is essentially what we're talking about. And then I want to talk about, okay, how do we improve in these areas? Because I think that's what people need to understand. So just a quick cursory list of the 12.
Yeah, well, you're going to say, well, you're going to hear the list. I'll just read from the table of contents, and you're going to say, William, duh, that should have been the title of the book. But the data is what makes the difference, right? So the fast, the authentic, the agile, the solver, the anticipator, the prepared, the self-aware, the curious, the connected, the likable, the productive, and the purpose-driven.
Yeah.
And we took each of those habits as a chapter, as you might guess.
Sure.
And we provided a case study for a real superstar that's great at that one habit. We then shared what we learned from the unicorns that we interviewed, because we interviewed and surveyed all the ones that we studied. And then we share what you can do to improve this area in your life.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it, because I think people go, okay, I want to improve in these areas. Now, the soft skills that we're talking about here, the reason I asked that question a moment ago about can I go from 0 to 10, and again, that's anecdotal in the way I posed it, but the idea here is that athletically, I love the game of basketball, but I was limited athletically in my ability to jump. I actually paid for those ridiculous shoes. People that are my age will remember these things. They had like a platform on the toe. And so the idea was you would walk around, essentially in a high heel shoe, but there was no heel. And the idea was it was going to make your calves stronger and you could jump higher. Well, again, if you don't have the God-given fast twitch muscle, you're not going to dunk a basketball. So
unless you're named Jimmy and you're on Seinfeld.
Exactly. Great point. Really good cultural call out. That's fun. Some people are going to have fun chasing that one down. But in this case, whether we can go 0 to 10 or not is less the issue. It is, can I improve in these areas? And you said unequivocally yes, and I think that's what's
Absolutely.
exciting. So I'm just going to pull 2 that I was intrigued by, okay?
Sure.
Because what I want to hear is I want you to tell people, okay, and let's talk about it, because I've got some thoughts too. So let's talk about authentic. So I thought this one jumped out at me. When I did a quick scan, I went immediately to this one. And the reason is, William, is because we live now in a day and age where it's really hard to know if we're getting the true authentic article if all we see of a person is their social media. And because we're talking about even our friends and acquaintances. And so much of our life is lived and positioned in that platform. And I think people are craving authenticity now more than ever because of all of the, is it real? AI's coming on the scene. There's so much of this. So tell me what you learned in the data first before we get into how we improve our authenticity. What stuck out in the research and you saw across the board, these unicorns, they just were authentic. What'd you learn?
Yeah, well, the big learning was these habits feed on one another. So if you practice any measure of all 12, you're going to rise in all of them. Your authenticity comes through when you get back to people. Well, that's the fast. Your authenticity comes through when you are likable. That's another one of the habits. So what we found, how do I become more authentic? That's kind of a hard thing okay, I'll just be more myself. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know if listeners remember the old Brad Paisley song, I look so much better online.
Yeah.
But that is where anyone can build a good resume now. That's not hard. You can hire an AI bot to do it for next to nothing. It's pretty scary what can happen. The authentic, what I found, Ken, is The authentic is not the most successful. It's who is the same on stage as backstage.
That's
Like
it.
that's it. It's the same on stage as backstage. You're sitting dealing with tech stuff right before the show. It's the same Ken I'm talking to right now. No, oh, Jekyll and Hyde, which was a Christian novel about the battle. It was between
Yeah.
Stevenson was a Christian. He talked about the battle in an individual between, oh, I'm bad, oh, I'm good. People just want to see that you're real.
Yeah.
And I tell candidates that all the time in interviews. Don't be afraid to share a weakness. What you don't want to come off is as a wounded victim. That's not authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now there's a pendulum swing where, 10, 15 years ago, it was you interview about your strengths, and now you have to share your trauma, right?
Yeah.
You have to share everything bad that's happened. And hey, I get it. I'm all for working through trauma, but being authentic doesn't mean telling your deepest, darkest fears or the worst thing that ever happened to you. It's this simple, Ken. Do you look people in the eye? Do you look people in the eye? Most people will not make eye contact if they're not being authentic.
Yeah.
And I don't know. How about I give you a life hack that's not in the book?
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you ever sat in a room? Dave does this all the time. You walk away from a conversation and you say, he made me feel like I'm the only person in the room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a good, you immediately want to trust that kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
They feel authentic. They feel reliable. They feel trustworthy. So here's one life hack for people listening today or watching. Look individuals in the eye, not the eyes. You can't look at two places at once. You can't look at the bridge of the nose. Look them dead in the eye. That's very hard to do if you're trying to hide something. And if you do it, people are going to feel connected. Now, here's the life hack. You only see out of one of your eyes. The other eye is for peripheral vision, for distance perception, that sort of thing. 90% of all humans are right eye dominant. Okay?
Okay.
Guns are built that way. Scopes on rifles. There are very few left-handed guns built that way because we don't see. So when you're talking to somebody, if you will look directly into their right eye, I guarantee you won't be able to do it if you need to work on your authenticity. And when you do it, people will view you as authentic and real.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think of my wonderful college kids right now who FaceTime their mother very regularly. And I'll try and say hello. And I know they want to talk to me, but mom, I'm like the backup quarterback.
Of course. Yeah.
So they want to talk to mom. I'll go up and say hi. I can't even see their face because they're walking around and they're staring and I can see their nose. The art of looking people in the eye has been lost, and it is maybe the simplest life hack for upping your authenticity with others.
Yeah. I think the key to becoming more authentic is becoming more aware. I just don't think that a lot of people are self-aware. And I think self-awareness is a superpower. And I think that when we are aware of ourselves, and I mean where we're weak, where we're strong, where we experience joy, where we experience pain. I mean true awareness of this is how I'm wired. And I teach this on stages and events. There's two ways to become self-aware, William. One is the way I'm designed. And that's what I spend a lot of time on, is helping people see how they're uniquely designed. And then my story. So the environment I grew up in and the experience of my life up to any given point, those two things, my design and my story, help me with awareness. And so I'm just throwing it out there, but I don't know that we can truly be authentic. I love looking people in the eye. That's making an authentic connection. But I don't know that we can be authentic if we, even in an interview, if we're not comfortable in our own skin, if we're not going, this is who I am. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, because I think that someone who is very self-aware stands out as being the genuine article.
I agree with you almost 100%. In
Okay,
fact,
tell me the percent that you don't, and I'm curious.
Well, let's start with the first thing. So self-awareness is a habit of the unicorns. And so totally congruent, and they feed on one another. The more self-aware you are, the more able you are to be authentic. Some people are self-aware and are still jerks.
100%.
But I'm 99%, maybe 99 and 44/100% in agreement with you. Self-awareness it's maybe the first starting point of all these 12 habits.
Yeah.
We interviewed the unicorns and we asked them in a long survey lots of things. One of the things we said was force rank these habits. Where do you think you're best? Where do you think you're worst? Just list them 1 to 12. Last place by a mile was self-awareness. And the punchline is these unicorns are actually pretty self-aware.
Yeah.
It's like the more self-aware you become, you're like, I got to work on this. and then we surveyed 250,000 people that are not unicorns, just regular people like you and me. We asked them a lot of things. One of the things we said, 1 to 5, where do you put yourself? 3's average, 5's amazing. Where are you in each of these habits? When it came to self-awareness, 93% of every one of the 250,000 we surveyed, 93% said they're above average in self-awareness.
Oh boy. Huh.
So I don't have an applied math degree, but I'm pretty sure 93% of a group is not above average.
No.
50% is.
Yeah, that's right.
So here's the learning. Self-awareness, as you excel and become a unicorn, you're going to focus on it more and more. You're going to say, I got so much more to learn.
Yeah.
If you don't work on it, it's going to be a huge blind spot and you're going to fail.
You're talking about a massive amount of data here and a massive amount of expertise from a guy who makes a living putting the right talent in the right seat on the bus. So I think it's really good stuff. It's must read. Be the Unicorn is the book. The Data-Driven Habits, all 12 of them build on each other. I think it's really, really good stuff. I think it's timely more than ever as we are less and less connected in reality and more on the digital side. And these are great people skills. And as you said, William, it's common sense stuff we should have learned from Mom.
But you know what, Ken? Here's something we didn't anticipate when we started the book, and I wish I could have gotten it out quicker. For the first time in America, there are 5 generations co-sharing the workspace.
That's a
right?
Good point. Yeah.
And you can, and so the older people are like, all they listen to is the young people. The young people, I can't break into the old boys club. There's a 6th generation that's about to super crowd the workforce, and it's not Gen X or Gen Z, it's Gen AI.
Yeah, that's right.
And, the predictions I'm reading go all over the place, but as high as 40% of all jobs right now will no longer be in 10 years. There'll be new jobs.
Right.
But you think it's crowded and messy now. Here's the thing. The more we become digitized, the more humans will long for good human relations.
Great point.
And AI cannot do any of these 12 habits.
This
correct. Is your chance to shine and become irreplaceable as we head into this new frontier.
That's the final word. You got to know when to fold them, and that's a great place to fold it. A really great statement. It's absolutely true. Your humanness is the X factor in the days ahead. So that's really good stuff. William, thanks for being with us, man. Your time is valuable, but what you've given our audience is very valuable, and we're grateful for it.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate you and all you're doing to help people.
Thanks to William Vanderblom, and I hope that you got something from that, because the data is not an arguable position here. I mean, this is real stuff, and it's practical, and I promise you, if you figure this stuff out, I think you really, in fact, can be a unicorn. It's not really difficult these days to be a unicorn when it comes to leading in the corporate space, because I see the news, I see the data, I know why you all are thinking about leaving leaders. So I know what it takes for you all to be great leaders, and that's some really practical stuff. So I hope you apply that, because we need better leaders big time in the corporate space. All right, that is going to about do it for me. Remember, hey, let everybody know about what we're doing over here. And if you need coached up, we're here for you as well. This is The Ken Coleman Show. Press on.
Thanks for listening to The Ken Coleman Show. For more, you can find the show on demand wherever you listen to podcasts and watch the show on YouTube. You can also find Ken across all social media by following @Ken Coleman.